Okay, it's recording.
Okay, fine.
Um, how has your day been so far?
Oh, pretty good. I've not feeling too good last couple of days, but I'm resting up waiting for you, so I'm okay.
Is it snowing where you are?
Is it warm?
No, is it snowing?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just very cold.
And there was a snowstorm outside.
Did you get some snow coming up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What's
But
that
is there-
painting behind you?
say that again.
That's a beautiful painting behind you.
Thank you. So it's okay if you could tell me your life before you entered or before America entered World War II?
What I did before I entered World War II?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you a quick rundown about me and my family.
Okay.
I was one of four boys. We grew up in a small town. We come from immigrant family. My parents were both born in Russia, but they didn't meet till they came to the United States. We have been jewelers all our lives. My father was a clockmaker, then became a watchmaker, then entered the jewelry business. And we still have a store here in Frederick, so we've been in business 101 years, 4 generations. But we grew up in a small town, very happy, called Westminster, Maryland. And when I graduated high school, I was 17 years old. That was in 1941 when I heard President Roosevelt say that the Japanese had attacked Americans on Pearl Harbor and the Day of Infamy, and they were having war with the Japanese Empire. So I was 17 years old when I graduated high school, and I was too young to go the service. So I went to college in Nashville, Tennessee. That's a few hundred miles from where I live, and Peabody College. And while I was down there, we're talking with the boys, and I said, I'm going to have to go in the service. I wonder why I should join. And they said, one fellow said, well, why don't you join the Air Corps? He said, you'll always have a bed, you'll always have food and a hospital, and you wear silver wings, and the girls love silver wings. So that sold me. So I went down to the recruiting center in Nashville, Tennessee, and I joined the U.S. Army Air Corps. Then I went back to Maryland where I lived, and in August of 1943, I was inducted into the United States Army Air Corps.
That's awesome.
From then on, shall I continue on with what happened to me, or do you have any questions?
You can continue on.
Okay, so after basic training, I went to a college training detachment called Wofford College, and we learned about flying. And then they sent me to an Air Force academy where they tested you for your abilities. And I aced the Morse code, which is did it dot dot did it dot dot, and the way of connecting with the and radio. And instructor said to me, how come you're so better with everybody than anybody else? And it turned out when I was in high school and college, I played the drums. And the rat-a-tat-tat that I played with lippity-dippity-dop with the drums sounded not too unfamiliar with the did-a-dot-dot-did-dot for the Morse code. So I was pretty good at that. So they made a radio operator out of me. So I modus operandi was radio gunner. And through my service, I went to all over the country, United States. I went to St. Louis, Missouri to a radio school. I went to Yuma, Arizona to a gunnery school. And then finally, I went to Dill Field, Florida which was an Air Force center where they made up the crews to go on these heavy bombers to go over Europe to fight the Nazis.
Wow.
And that's a nutshell of what I did early on in my Air Force career. Now, you have any other questions? You want to continue on with the questions you have?
When you talked about your family and you say you had 4 other siblings,
Yeah, 3 other.
were you the youngest or the oldest?
I was the 3rd one. It was an unusual family. In fact, our Carroll County, where we grew up, has made a hour video of our family because of the 4 boys. Each one of us were in different branches of the service. My youngest brother, Jerry, was in the Army. My brother, William, was in the Navy. My oldest brother, Albert, was a Marine, and I was in the Air Force. So the 4 of
Wow.
us were in different branches of the service. We all went in, served overseas or whatever, and we all came back safely.
That's good. Did you have to work as a child?
Not really. I got a job. We didn't have a lot of money. It was depression, what they call depression years. But my father had a little jewelry store, so we had a little more than a lot of other kids. That really, families were struggling, but we didn't have. We were poor, but we didn't know it. But when I got out of high school, I had about an hour, a month or 2 before going to college, and I got a job as a counter boy in a restaurant. And I also got a job, what's it called, in a canning factory, strapping cans. We're in a country community, and we had a lot of corn and peas and string beans and so forth. And we did a lot of canning in our county. So I worked there for a while, then I went to college.
Where did you go to school?
I went to high school between, well, I don't know, I guess 6 years old, and graduated high school in 1942. And I went to Peabody for about 8 months. And then that's about all the schooling. When I got out, I went to college, got a scholarship to St. John's College in Annapolis, but my father opened up a jewelry store and I went there. So that was
Wow.
all.
Were you married before you left for the war?
Was I what?
Were you married before you
No.
left overseas?
I was only 18 years old, though. I was not married till I got out of the Army.
Okay. Why did you join the military?
When?
Yes, when and why did you join the military?
Well, I was, everybody went in the military. If they didn't get drafted, I mean, they would draft you and you'd have to go. Otherwise, take action. Sometimes with conscience, objector, and so forth. But let's say everybody felt it was a duty at that time. It was a thing to do, very patriotic. Everybody joined in, and I don't know anybody that was a conscientious objector or for religious reasons or anything like that that refused to go. Now and then you'd find someone that would go up to Canada and refuse to fight. And Canada was a safe haven for them. So they would get out of the state, but that's very rare.
What was the training like for you?
All the training was everything was new. I was only 18, hadn't been away from home. Went to St. Louis, I learned the Morse code, how to operate the machinery for the radio. I went to gunnery school and learned to shoot the machine guns and out of the plane. And I remember firing machine guns at the mountains. It was a very sparsely populated area in the United States, really down near the Mexican border.
Wow. Sorry, once you completed the training, where were you stationed?
When I completed my training, I said we went to Dill Field, and I was listed as a radio gunner, and they made up a crew in Dill Field, Florida, and about 11 crewmen to fly B-17. A pilot, a co-pilot, a navigator, a bombardier, an engineer, a ball turret gunner, a tail gunner, and a waist gunner, and I think one more. It's about nine to 10 of us were. And from there, when we made up the crew, we would give it a plane to fly overseas, and we flew from MacDill, Florida, to Bangor, Maine. And from Bangor, Maine, that was our last stop in the United States. And then we stopped to refuel at Goose Bay, Labrador, and Gander, Newfoundland. And from there, we left the North American continent and we flew to Iceland. In Iceland, we landed. We did not get off the plane. We just took on fuel. From Iceland, from Greenland, we flew to Iceland. Iceland was quite a story because we were snowbound there for about 10 days. We couldn't get out. It was a blizzard. If we wanted to walk from your Quonset hut to your mess hall hut, 4 people had to lock arms.
Wow.
And work together to make sure you wouldn't be blown off the ground.
It must have been really bad.
Yeah,
Was
it
it?
really was. And an interesting thing happened to me then, as I look back and remember. One person had to stay guard duty on the plane at night. That's for security reasons. You couldn't leave your plane alone. So
Right, so no one steals it?
yeah, sure. Couldn't steal it, but they could do mechanical harm to it. They could dislodge something, whatever they could do. But they certainly couldn't fly it away. But so it had to be a guard there. So near my plane was a little hut with 4 Welshmen, and they had a little stove there, and they made tea and had a biscuit or so, and they invited me in, and we had a good time together. They enjoyed talking with me, and me with them. They taught me a few Welsh words, and it was part of the camaraderie that the soldiers had with each other, and they liked to meet somebody from another culture and another company. So after 10 days in Iceland, we took off and landed in Holly Hills, Wales. And from Wales, we were put on a train and we went down across England to the East Coast, where all of the air bases, British and American, were stationed. Every farm practically had an air base. There'd be 30, 40, 50 air bases there because they were closest to the mainland of England, of Germany and France, and the Balkans where we had to fly. So we got down to a town called Ipswich, and they stationed me in what's called the 493rd Bomb Group. And that was the last bomb group to be formed by the 8th Air Force. And the air base, the little farm that we had the airfield on was called Devich, spelled D-E-B-A-C-H. I was stationed at Devich at the time, and I was there until the war ended. I was in Europe. Europe was armistice.
Was there a fight or battle that you remember?
What's that?
Was there a fight or battle you remember?
Flight of value?
Fight or a battle?
I don't understand.
Hold on. Okay, is there a fight or battle you remember being in?
I don't understand you, Shelby, but
A battle like the Battle of the Bulge.
oh no. I was up in the air. I was 38,000 feet up in the air. I was never on anything on the ground. Now, when I got over there in the winter of 44, and the Battle of the Bulge and the Remagen Bridgehead was a famous battle, we couldn't fly because the weather was so bad. And we were the heavy bombers. So we had to be able to make sure that we had weather so the bombardier and the safety of the plane. But all of the battles that you read about and hear about, the famous battles of World War II, were on the ground. We had our own battles in the air when we flew our planes over to Germany and France and Czechoslovakia and wherever. We were always in constant battle with fighters. The German Luftwaffe was very capable, and we had our own fighter pilots and constant air battles all the time. But that was our life, it's in the air.
When you were flying in the air, do you remember fighting a Nazi in the air?
I didn't see any Nazis. I know they were flying the planes that were coming down at us. I want to amend something. I really didn't see any fighters because it was towards the end of the war. And we had eliminated all of Germany's ability to produce oil and gasoline. We bombed so many of their factories. So they had no planes in the air. When I was in the war, they didn't have the battles that you read about and you see about. We had what they call flak, which was they shoot up big puffs of iron and steel and so forth that explode and tried to bring the plane down. But we didn't have any fighter pilots in my period of flight because the Germans didn't have any planes, didn't have the oil, and they were getting a scarcity of pilots too with the end of the war.
Did you have any friends that were lost in the war?
Yes, I did. I had one very good friend. My best friend was lost in the war. A very sad story. I came on leave one year and I went back to my old neighborhood. And I went back to my friend's house and his mother, who we grew up with, was 5 or 6 years old, I guess. And I came in real happy, good to see you, Mrs. Lottie. How's Bobby? And she looked at me. She said, Bobby was killed.
Oh.
He was killed in Luzon by a sniper at the Philippine area of the Japanese war. So that was terrible. And
I'm very sorry to hear that about your friend. I'm very sorry to hear that
Yeah.
about your
no,
friend.
no. I'm still in touch with his sister, who's my age. She's still living. Nobody left in the area but me and 2 or 3 other people in our age. But yeah, I knew a lot of friends, but Bobby was one.
What is one thing from the war that you will never forget? You don't have to answer this question if you don't
Well,
want.
I had a couple of experiences, Shelby, that I'll tell you about that I'll never forget. After
Okay.
the war, I had a couple of experiences after the war that were most memorable. One is we dropped food to the Dutch. The Dutch people were starving. And General Eisenhower made arrangements with the Germans not to fire on us. The war was just about over, a matter of weeks. And we loaded up our airplane with food, and we came in very low into Holland
Mhm.
and dropped food to the Dutch. They were starving. The movie actress Audrey Hepburn was one of them that was suffering from malnutrition. She always suffered the rest of her life because of deprivation of food that she had in Holland. Here's a book I'm going to show you. It's called Operation Chowhound. Can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, and this is a book on what we did. It says here, the most risky, most glorious U.S. bomber mission of World War II. I've
Wow.
done 2 of those, one on Netherlands and one in Hanover. And we dropped food so low that little David, time was in a stadium, and they made a field out of tulips one place, and it said, "Thank you, Yanks," for that was heartwarming. I'll never forget that they would do that for us to bring them this food.
That's very nice that they did that.
Yeah. And the other thing that's very memorable to me, Shelby, was after the war, we flew into Austria, Linz, Austria. It's right on the Danube. I never thought I'd see the Danube. You hear about it in school and everything, the music. We flew to Linz, Austria, and we picked up French prisoners of war from the Germans and flew them back to France, Chantilly, France. We did 2 trips like that. These men were waiting in the field, on the airfield, and we landed, and they were emaciated and sick, and we took all of their clothes, whatever they had on, and we deloused them with powder, disinfectant, and then we wrapped each one in a blanket, and we put them along the fuselage in the plane on both sides. We must have had 50 or 60 fellas in a plane, and flew back to France.
Yeah.
We did that twice. That was most important.
Yeah. Was there a concentration camp that you liberated?
What's that, honey?
Was there a concentration camp that you liberated?
Yeah, well, at that time, no. But this past year, the Best Defense Foundation has taken me and other veterans to Germany and to Pearl Harbor at the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. And while we were in Germany, we were there for 10 days with 6 veterans. And they took us to Sachsenhausen, which was a German concentration camp at the time near Berlin. We saw that. We saw many, many things in Berlin, everything pertaining to World War II, because that was there. It was the 75th anniversary of the ending of World War II in Germany, but because of the pandemic, they scheduled it a year later. and that's when we went in this past year. But I saw the concentration camp there, but I never was there when the activity was. I was flying up high.
Yeah, I remember. I saw the a video from Best Defense Foundation with the battlefield return to Berlin, Germany, and there were two concentration camps that I saw. One in what's it called, Alhem and
That's right. I was at Allen too. I have a book here for Allen and under Sergeant Melvin.
Yes, and the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. Wait, did I say that right?
What's that?
The Sachsenhausen concentration camp.
Sachsenhausen concentration camp near Berlin. That was sort of like a fashionable, I shouldn't say fashionable, but that was a one near Berlin, the only one near Berlin. So when the high up officers came through Berlin, they would show them Sachsenhausen concentration camp as a model for other concentration camps. So Alheim was a different story. Alheim was out of Hanover. I don't know if you know, but if you check your history books, Henry Kissinger, who was a Secretary of State under Richard Nixon and a very big man in the political and educational context of the government, was a private in Alheim, and one of the boys, his name Caceres, was there with us, and he came back to this site that he'd been in World War II, and he said, I want to walk over to that field and I want to see if that stone fence is still there. And we walked over the field, and sure enough, this long stone fence there. He said, we walked up the stone fence and we saw one man in a striped uniform, and the stench in the area was so bad, the smell. And he said, over the next hill, if you follow me, there's a concentration camp. And that's when they went into Alheim and found it.
I remember one of the World War II veterans that were with you liberated that concentration camp.
Right.
Yes, and at some point I actually interviewed him.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? You remember?
Bill Casassa.
Bill Casassa. He was the one who asked about the fence, the stone fence. Yeah, Bill Casassa's my buddy. Yeah, he went to Pearl Harbor with us too.
Yeah, I saw. I also learned that another World War II veteran actually lost his family in the Allen concentration camp. Is that right?
What's that?
Another World War II veteran that was with you, he actually lost his whole family from one of the concentration camps that you were in.
That was at Alheim. We were at Alheim, and we went to, well, you know more about this than I do, Shelby. We went to Alheim, and we have two gentlemen who were German Jewish kids that came to the United States, and they were called the Ritchie boys. So they were trained for sabotage in the United States, and they came back, and this one gentleman thought that his parents were parents in a different concentration, Dachau, I think. But our leader, Donnie Edwards, found out, and Guy Stern was his name, that his parents were in Aachen, had died in Aachen. And in Hanover itself, they had a Jewish memorial area, and where all the people that died in Aachen had little cubby holes like with their names on it, all down like that. And they took Guy, and they showed Guy his mother and father and sister and their names, and he had no idea. He had no idea that that's where his parents were. And Donnie brought a big wreath out that we had made in advance.
Mhm.
And it was a very, very heartwarming and unusual and experience to be with Guy at that time when he found out that he finally was united with his parents. We have that all on tape, which you can see.
Yeah, I saw he walked over and put the wreath down, and I guess stood next to where his parents and to where his family's names were.
Right. Stern was the last name.
Hmm.
I was there too. Bill told you everything, huh?
Yeah, and I also saw the battlefield return video Best Defense does.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Anything else you want to know from me?
when the war ended, did you celebrate the end of the war?
Well, let me tell you what happened. The war ended in Europe. When the war ended in Europe, I was on an air base. Couldn't get in a town because it was wild. But I remember the men and the women were singing, had little haystacks in the field, and they had their hands and were singing around the haystacks. And they was singing a little naughty song that the British used for fun. It was called
Oh.
Knees Up, Mother Brown. And I remember when knees up, watch for the breeze up, knees up, Mother Brown. And they would sing that. And now whenever we run into an old timer from Britain, I say, you ever remember the song Knees Up? Oh yeah, we remember that. That's what they were singing on the farm. But the war ended. We flew back to the United States, flew over and I flew back. Never was on a boat. Flew back to the United States and I had leave for 2 weeks. And then I went out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where they had a distribution area for people, flyers sending them all over the country to go into B-29 training to go to Japan to fight. And they sent me to Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico. And I saw the B-29s out there on the tarpon, and I'd never seen something so big in all my life. Our planes were supposed to have been big, but they're like little matchsticks. And so we had training for a week. We never got in a B-29. We just had school training. And then they dropped the atomic bomb in Japan, of course. And that's all it was. The war ended and they sent me home. But Bill Casasas and I, and another fellow, Jack Myers.
I interviewed him too.
Huh?
I interviewed Jack Myers too.
You did, Jack Myers? What do you need me for? Those two were on the ground. Those two are on the ground. Lost my train of thought. Oh, the three of us were the ones that were in Berlin together, and we were also in Pearl Harbor. So, in effect, what happened to us, Shelby, in Germany, we're in the very room that the Germans signed a surrender to the Russians and the Allies.
Wow.
Famous room in a garden home in the suburbs. And a few months later, we're on the SS Missouri, on the battleship that was in Japan when the Japanese surrendered to Douglas MacArthur in Tokyo Bay. So that's that experience. Bill Casasas and Jack Myers and I had. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I really wish.
Show you something else before you go, okay?
Okay.
I don't know, can you see me? Very good.
Yeah, I can still see.
See a little better now?
Mm-hmm.
How about this? I got it up on my wall. I thought I'd take. Can you see this?
Wow.
This is the French Legion of Honor medal,
Mm-hmm.
the highest they do for servicemen in France. This is the it goes with it. This is my Eisenhower jacket. This is on display in the museum in Savannah, Georgia, World War
Wow.
II. And this is my flight jacket, original A2 flight jacket. This is
Mm-hmm.
on display in Debich, England, on my Air Force base. I donated it to them, and it's. Can you see it? Okay.
Wait, can you put it up a little bit? Wait, I still can't see.
It says organized confusion. That's the name of the plane.
Yeah, I can see it.
One of our
That's
members,
awesome.
one of our members of that crew painted that. So that's on display at the museum at Debich, England, 493rd. And it's the only flight jacket on display in the museum that originated out of that base. So I thought that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's that.
Yeah, I also saw the picture of the plane, of your plane.
What's
I
that?
also on that I also saw I also saw a glimpse of a plane.
Oh, whose plane?
The plane that was on there. A picture of the plane that was on there.
P-17.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful plane.
Yep. Anyway, okay, when were you discharged from the military?
When I was discharged in February of 1946.
Did you have any long or short-term injuries?
No injuries at all.
Were there any medals or awards that you received?
Any what?
Medals or awards that you received?
Well, I had the ribbons on my flight jacket, which I turned over when I gave up my jacket to the museum. I got no distinguishing awards, if that's what you mean. The only award that I got that I don't think I really deserved was a good conduct medal, because I was a rascal. That's a little joke there.
Okay, what was your life like after the war ended?
Well, I went into the family jewelry business. I've been married twice in my lifetime. I have a daughter, 2 grandsons, and 1 great-grandson. And I retired from the jewelry business. I retired to Florida. I lived there for 38 years. Then my wife passed away with Alzheimer's. And they brought me back here home, Frederick, Maryland.
I'm sorry to hear that about your wife.
It happens. Thank you.
Okay, what job did you have when you came back to America?
Jewelry, retail jewelry.
Awesome. Were there any ceremonies that you have gone to honoring you and other World War II veterans?
Oh, quite a few. I've been to 3 or 4 reunions, 8th Air Force reunions. Latest one was about 3 years ago. I went to New Orleans, Louisiana, which has most complete, I think, World War II museum. And takes up about 4 city blocks. It's amazing. Been that, and I've been to conventions, World War II conventions.
Okay, when you went to to Berlin, Germany with the Best Defense Foundation. Is it okay if you could describe the trip from your point of view?
Well, I was hesitant to go to Germany because of the atrocities of World War II. But everybody said go, and I did, and I enjoyed it. The people were wonderful, and I learned a lot. I learned about their attitudes and the forgiveness they're trying to forge for what Hitler had done at that time in their life. And everybody was just wonderful. They treated us great. We had one moment that was a lot of fun. We went to the Reichstag. You know where the Reichstag is? That's like their White House.
I heard of it. What is it?
Mhm.
But what's the Reichstag? I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
Reichstag is like the Capitol building, like the Capitol, and it's very modern, new, rebuilt. It was demolished practically in World War II. But we were on the rooftop and overlooking Berlin, and they had a lovely restaurant there. And we got there early, and we had about a half an hour, so we're taking pictures and everything. Then we said, well, what do we do now? So I said, let's sing God Bless America. So we all chimed in, and it was a riotous feeling sitting on top of the Reichstag and singing God Bless America. Wonderful. And that's another thing. Yes, I remember, always take that with me.
Yeah, when you went to the I'm sorry if I said this wrong. When you went to the so how did it feel to be in the house of the I'm sorry if I can't pronounce that, but how did you feel when you went to the place where all the high-ranking Nazis talked about the final solution?
Oh, that was Wannsee.
Want to see?
Wannsee. That's frightening. It's a large, I've got all these catalog books. I should have brought them out for you. The large home, maybe 50 rooms in this house, and it was confiscated, and it was in a beautiful residential section of Germany over a lake, overlooked with beautiful lawns and everything. And here, in this gorgeous, lovely setting, 15 German generals at Adolf Hitler's behest decided that they would exterminate the Jewish people. 15.
What they did was just terrible. I think a couple of days ago was the day Auschwitz was liberated, and the Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Of course. I remember looking up at the board, that big board showing the different rules that they had decided upon how they would proceed with this extermination. And one rule sounded very much like the other rule, but a different wording, different pronunciation. So I said, what's so-and-so mean? It sounds like this. He says that rule describes the lineage of a person must have in their background to prove that they're not Jewish. If your mother-in-law is not Jewish, your mother-in-law is Jewish, if her father is half Jewish, and it goes on these whole lineage situations way back in a person's life. And you had to prove to the powers that be that this was so, and this was so, and this was so, and this was not so, and so forth, before they would allow you to live and tear you up. And in
Wow.
such a beautiful setting, they did that.
Wow. Oh, what's ironic was at one point during the summer, my mom told me that I think Hitler's grandmother was Jewish, but I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I've heard that too. I don't know. You hear so many things. Your mother said so, she knew.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's true or not. So,
You can look it up, you can Google it.
but if Hitler's grandmother was Jewish, then that's ironic that he did that. He wanted to
He
get
did
rid
what
of
he
the.
wanted to do, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if that rumor is true, then it'd be ironic that Hitler wanted to get rid of
I
Europe's
think-
Jewish
I think
population.
his doctor was Jewish, I read somewhere.
Say that again?
Hmm?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I said, I read somewhere that Hitler's personal physician was Jewish. So, you know, it's all out there somewhere.
Mhm.
Shelby,
Yes.
anything else before we go, dear?
Um,
Our voice is getting out a little bit here.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
What was your reaction when you went to the Olympic Stadium where Hitler watched the 1936 Olympics?
Very memorable. Very memorable. Another thing I'll never forget. Sat in the very place where he sat.
Wow.
This 100,000 seat, and it's been kept immaculate. You can see Jesse Owens' name up there. It's still engraved in the marble.
Yeah, I remember Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals in front of Hitler.
4 in a row, right? And one after that, I think.
Yes, and Hitler didn't acknowledge him.
Right. But let me tell you something. When I don't know if anybody's ever told you this or not, but when he came back to America, President Roosevelt did not invite him.
Wow. How come?
Had others, but didn't have Jesse Owens.
Right,
So,
because
you
this
know,
is
very deeply seated, very deeply seated. But Germany, they eradicated all anti-Jewish signs in Germany before the Olympics. So when people, foreigners or another country, they didn't see any of that.
Mm.
It was all taken down 2 weeks before. And then,
wow. Would you go back to Berlin again?
obviously, why not? You know, I'm not going back. I know I'm 96. I hope to make it to tomorrow. But I've had my time in Berlin.
Okay. When you went to Pearl Harbor for its 80th anniversary, how did you feel when you went to the place where America was attacked?
For who?
When you went back to Pearl Harbor for its
No.
80th anniversary, how did you feel when you went to the place where America was under attack?
Well, it's amazing to see how they came in and where they came in. They came into a place called Fort Island, and right across the water was the Arizona and all the other battleships. They took us to a place called Maxwell Field, where we had all of our airplanes lined up in a row. And it was just amazing that they were able to destroy all of those because they were so close together. Hundreds of airplanes, I think. And we went to a beautiful spot on the island. It's called because my memory, cemetery, where most all the sailors are buried up in the mountains, and it's gorgeous.
Wow. Would you go to Pearl Harbor again?
I'd love to. I'd love to go to some of the other Hawaiian islands too.
Yeah, yeah, I wish I went to Pearl Harbor for its 80th anniversary because I've never been to Pearl Harbor and I really want to.
I'll tell you a little secret, a highlight. I was sitting out on my balcony. It
Mm-hmm.
was last night in Hawaii. It was a beautiful evening. And I could look out, see the ocean across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned on my cell phone and I said, play Elvis Presley singing Blue Hawaii. And then Elvis Presley was singing Blue Hawaii, and here I was. And I thought, this will never happen to me, but it did.
Yeah, I think that was all. So that was all my questions.
What's that?
Sorry, that was that was all my questions.
I beat you to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are your parents in the house there with you somewhere?
Yes, my mom and dad are upstairs.
Oh, I wish they'd come down. I'd like to say hello.
Wait, you want to say hello to my right?
Anybody who's there, I'll say hello to.
Yeah, my mom just went upstairs.
Not terrible. Okay, that's all right.
And I'll tell her that I'll tell her
Well,
and
I
my
asked
dad that
about
you
it.
said
Tell her
hello.
she has a lovely daughter, and it's my honor to be interviewed by her. I like your little flag.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got this from my Girl Scout troop leader when I think when we were before COVID, we went to the VA in the Bronx or in Brooklyn, and we gave cookies to the people who are in the VA.
By the way, I ordered Girl Scout cookies from you. You know it's coming in March,
Wait, really?
huh?
Wait, your cookies are coming in March?
Scheduled in March to receive my Girl Scout cookies. The mix-up, I told them to put it in a bag to give it away, food bank. But they, for some reason, are mailing them directly to you.
Well,
So when you
yeah,
get
I'll
them,
check. Yeah, I'll check that.
you'll give them to whoever needs them.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And yeah, yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
Okay. By the
So
way,
yeah.
that cemetery in Hawaii is called the Punch Bowl.
Oh yeah, I heard the Punch Bowl Cemetery.
Now go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just saying. Yeah, the cemetery you went to was called the Punch Bowl Cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a reason why it's called that?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a reason the cemetery you went to is called the Punch Bowl Cemetery?
They told us, but I don't remember exactly what the reason
was. Yes, thank you for letting me interview you.
It's been my pleasure, Shelby, and keep your telephone calls covered.
I will.
Now I know who I'm talking to. You live in Hamilton Heights, right?
Yep.
At the northern part of Manhattan?
Mm-hmm.
Up against the Hudson River?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I'll say around here, around there.
At the Upper East Side?
I guess I don't know. I don't follow the Hudson River. I mean, I use the Hudson Highway to get to school, but yeah, I'm not near the Hudson River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My brother lived down near the Lincoln Center. My brother lived at 68th and Broadway.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me interview you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Shelby. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, honey.
Mhm.